Hey friends, we're finally at the part where we are going to do the sewn bind off. And I just wanted to share with you how I've set myself up to do this bind off. Have been working in magic loop, so my cable is over here on the left and both of my needles are over here on the right. And I have cut my tail, my working yarn, and I've noticed I've cut a really long tail. When we talk about working this sewn bind off, we will talk about the first and second stitches on your needles. And when I say that, I will mean the first, stitch number 1 here, and stitch number 2 that are on your left needle, and not referring to any stitches that you've already bound off. We have to do a few setup stitches. We're going to do this only one time. So what I'm going to do is I am going to insert this tapestry needle into stitch number 1, so the first stitch purlwise with my needle pointing left, and I'm going to pull it through. I have a really long tail, and I'm going to give that a tug to make sure it's, not strangled, but pulled in pretty snug. Then I'm going to take the same needle and I'm going to insert it in between stitches 1 and 2 from back to front. And then my last step for this setup phase is I am going to insert my needle into the second stitch knitwise and pull it through from left to right. All right, so we are done with the setup steps and now we can begin. After you've done the basic setup steps, we will begin our repeat. And you can see that I've already bound off a few stitches and it looks really pretty. It's as if the knitting is reversible. It just goes over the edge. And therefore I think that this bind off technique is definitely worth it, and I suggest you give it a try. All right, here we go. Let's start with the first step. I am going to move my work towards the tips of my needle here, and step number 1 is going to be to insert the needle into the first stitch knitwise and slip it off. Pull the yarn through and give it a nice little tug. Step number 2, insert your needle into stitch number 2. Oh, I may have pulled that a little too tight, so don't do what I just did. Insert it purlwise into stitch number 2 and leave that stitch on. Very good. Insert the needle purlwise into stitch number 1 and pull it off the needle. Give it a little tug. Insert your needle purlwise from back to front in between stitches 1 and 2. So right in between the stitches. Oops, if your yarn gets caught, just be patient there. And step number 5 is going to be insert your needle into stitch number 2 knitwise from left to right. Let's do that again. We're going to begin the repeat again. Step number 1, and this time I'm going to say it in the abbreviated, song that I say in my head. I'll show you what I say when I'm doing this alone. Knit 1 off. Purl 2 on. Purl 1 off. Purl between. knit 2 on. I hope you're doing this with me because I'm having a good time. Would you like to do that repeat together one more time? Let's do it. Knit 1 off. Purl 2 on. Purl 1 off. Purl between. Knit 2 on. All right, so keep doing that until you work your way around the entire Hatdana. You want to work your way all the way around, and when you get to 2 stitches, I'll come back and I'll show you how to finish off the ribbing so that it looks clean and continuous. All right, I'll meet you when I get to stitches, the last 2 stitches. See you then. Okay, friends, now we are at the point where we have 2 stitches left on our knitting needle, and we still have a tail attached to our tapestry needle. And the goal here is to make a seamless connection between these 2 last stitches and the first stitch that you bound off. And so I will show you how we're going to use the same steps that we've been repeating in order to make this seamless, and it'll hopefully look really good. All right, so if we repeat the steps that we've been doing thus far, the first step will be to knit 1 off. So knit the first stitch, enter it knitwise, and take it off the needle. Oh, this way. All right. The second step was to purl the second stitch, purl 2 on. And I don't have a second stitch here, so I am going to reach into the right leg. Here we go. Hopefully you can see which part of the stitch I'm using. I'm going to insert my needle purlwise into that first stitch that I bound off when we began this invisible bind off. So I'm going into the right leg, purlwise, and pulling my yarn through. Third step of the process is to purl 1 off. So let's get rid of that and pull our yarn through. After that purl stitch, the next step said purl between, but we don't have a wooden needle anymore to purl between. So we're going to skip the purl between and we are going to knit 1, which was the final step. And what I'm going to use is the left leg. So we purled into the right leg, and I'm going to knit into the left leg of the same stitch we were just working in knitwise. And let's see, does that look good? Oh man, that looks so good. What do you guys think? All right, so all that's left to do is to weave in this tail. But before you weave in your tail, I want to show you a really cool trick that you can use the tail to reinforce the join here on the back of the Hatdana. If we look really closely, you'll remember that we bound off 1 stitch. That's pretty good and solid. That's not going anywhere. But if you want to be extra sure and you want to use this tail that is already here and you have to weave it in anyway, I'll show you what to do. All right, I'll see you in the next video on how to reinforce the join using the tail. See you then.